latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
This is StratNews Global. I am Amitabh Revi. On the talking point today, we're looking at many rounds of different diplomatic and political talks that India and China have been having and the situation along the LAC. A warm welcome to all those viewers who are joining us live, and a welcome to those viewers who will pick up this stream later on our YouTube channel. Our expert analyst today is Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. General Sharma, good to see you, sir. Thanks for giving us some time.
Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you for inviting me.
General, we're looking at the SCO meet, but mostly the India-China defense ministers meet on the sidelines, and stark contradictions, as you point out. At least if you look at the statements, we don't know what went on, behind closed doors. But the statements, the Raksha Mantri, after meeting General Shangfu, says that India reiterates that violation of existing agreements have eroded the entire basis of bilateral relations, while China, in their statement, talks about the transition of the border situation to what they say is normalized management.
So true. And General Shangfu is the last one to say so. But last 8 months, you see, when Wang Yi came twice, he said this. Qin Gang came, he said that. Mao Ling, who sits there in Beijing, he keeps repeating it. Just 4 words: normalized border management and control. This is being repeated. This has become an institutional position. Everybody's institutional positions in China who comes and talks is about normalized border management and control. Take a step back from the situation there, and let's have a normalized border management and control. What does it mean by normal? Is it normal? And on the contrary, like I said, the stark contradictions. You see what the external affairs ministers has been repeating again and again, saying the situation is not normal. What is normal? Is the road being built within 15 kilometers of the line of actual control G695? Is it normal? All around 4,000 kilometers of frontage? Is the pipelines being oil pipelines? Is the habitat being built for the military? Is the formations of the 76, 77 group armies being located so close to the border? Is that normal? Is the buffer zones created normal? Where is the normalcy that we are talking about? Chinese create a threat against us, which we perceive as a threat, and they say now let's resort to normal border management and control. There it is not normal, and just by saying it, then there's normalcy and normal border management control. You don't make things normal, and that is the message. Even yesterday night, the same message was conveyed. I'm sure General Shangfu, and as you rightly point out, his readout says the same word: normalcy, normal management. We have said it, you have had the protocol, you had the agreement, you finished off with all that, you did something which is totally against what our protocols and agreements had agreed, and then you say normal. So it's not normal.
Absolutely. 2 of our viewers agree completely with you, General. One is Salvatore Barbones, a professor, American professor who teaches in Australia in Sydney and has been to India a lot. He says, well, at least the Chinese language is consistent. And Jaideep Gadhavi says, so is the Indian. And we just put out both those statements there. Yeah. But now when you're looking at before the defense ministers meeting, the 18th round of the Corps Commander level talks, the WMCC in-person talks in Beijing in February, the positions, as you're pointing out, on the ground remain the same. You were talking about an institutionalized Chinese policy, General. Could you just flesh that out, that thought a bit? And how does India press for disengagement, de-escalation, de-induction, which is the final objective?
So I know one studies it from 1959 onwards as to when they made the line. What does that line meant? Actually, it's a unilateral line. It had no bias, no relationship to previous lines at all. Suddenly, they came up with a line. Why that line? Why not 10 kilometers this way or 10 kilometers on the eastern side? Why they stick to this one particular line? So they actually wanted to hold on to the plateau part of it or the heights part of it, all the heights existing, and push the Indian side down. So when you say their line goes to Butse, they take the plateau away and they put us down on the lower reaches where the rivers are joining back into main river. So finally speaking, they said, okay, the heights are with us and you are down. This is what probably they wanted to achieve. They have achieved in many ways, but they have not achieved in many ways also. So they occupy from Depsang and right up to in these areas, which we know where buffers have been established. We are now probably not on the patrolling access routes across to the places we used to patrol earlier. It became buffers. And then naturally, we're not able to go to the Depsang plateau. That becomes a difference here. Now, when we say there are two problem areas which exist, the Depsang and the Demchok. Depsang is a place where there is, as you're aware, we call it Depsang, but it's along the Raki Nala, where in the bottleneck, we are on either sides of each other, about 1.5 kilometers. So they are not allowing us to reach the plateau for patrolling. That's one part. And I don't think they're going to relent, my personal view, I don't think they're going to relent. It allows us greater access to visit Depsang plateau, which they are hesitant to do so. And the other area, Demchok, it's not Demchok proper. Demchok, we have a village, they have a Demchok village, but it's along the Demchok Nala way inside, where we used to patrol and go to a pass called Chardingla. This has been a problem area for last 20, 30 years. Every time we took this patrol, the Chinese blocked us. Now they have blocked us permanent. Now, if they relent here, we will commence the patrolling to Chardingla as a pass. That is a area which Chinese don't want us to visit. So therefore, to get this sorted out will be out of question. So when you talk about Eastern Ladakh, I think we have reached a place where with the buffers and whichever the way we are located, there is not going to be any progress, at least on the military side. You mentioned 18 rounds here and 12 rounds of WMCCs that have taken place. There hasn't been progress on these two areas or elsewhere. So this is where it is stuck. Now, I'll add one more issue. Look, after we moved up in a substantial manner all along this 3,500 kilometers of border, we've understood one thing, that the Chinese have a habit of nibbling. It's called salami slicing, but they will nibble, and they prefer to nibble short of war. You know, they won't like to come and capture major territories. At least they don't give that intent. But, you know, they will nibble it. So you leave a weakness anywhere in this 4,000 kilometers, 3,500 kilometers, they will come and nibble there, which makes it that we have to be located. I believe you went to Yangtse. You know, we have to be located at those places to make sure there is no further nibbling. You know, it is finishes there. So, you know, what happens is here that we are not eyeball to eyeball with like line of control, but we are located in a manner that we deny further nibbling along the borders or further salami slicing, as is being called. That makes it now kind of a fixated border that exists here. And the Chinese on the side, large forces, and we on the outside, large forces, and stuck there. That's what I want to say.
Sure. You're talking about Ladakh a lot. And you mentioned Yangtze, as we've just been back, and hopefully we'll have a few documentaries out on that soon. But as you're pointing out, that salami slicing was not successful. Yangtze incursion attempt was repulsed on December 9th. But subsequently, as you point out, even in an article you've written today, a third list of invented Chinese names in Arunachal were released. There were protest noises about the Home Minister's visit. So again, just how do you see the Chinese moves, especially in Arunachal Pradesh, where we are at the commanding heights?
So I think, you know, in this lifetime, the Chinese to think also that they will be able to take Arunachal Pradesh, which is our country, our territory, the people are ours in any manner. And then there is a 2005 agreement. We talked about settled areas, settled populations. I think it's out of question. It is also, pragmatically speaking, it's out of question by war or by peace. Arunachal Pradesh is ours. What does Chinese want from us? Do they want this territory, or it's just a question of making sure they put India under tremendous amount of geostrategic and geopolitical pressure so that they tie us down in a manner? India has tremendous amount of potential. We are growing to that potential. We are going by leaps and bounds by creating the tensions along the borders and by repeating this names business here or protestations of somebody visiting, Home Minister visiting. It is just a question of pressure tactics. It's their way of coercion, military and political coercion. And we have to stand up and look in their eyes and said, okay, we don't want to get coerced. We're not interested in getting coerced. You want to change names, so be it. Tomorrow I change the name of Akshay Chin. Some very alert gentleman said, Akshay Chin name can be something. Akshay, Chin means Akshay. I mean, lifelong hours or something like that. So we change names all from Akshay Chin down to this one doesn't mean anything at all. So this name changing is an old tactics. They can be happy with it and can be satisfied. Call it Zagnanan or whatever they want to call it. It makes no difference to us.
Again, General, these diplomatic political engagements, which you've seen several of them in the last few months and more to come, how do you assess India's position? I mean, Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang is due again next week.
Goa.
On the sidelines of the G20, maybe even a full meeting, who knows. SCO, G20, BRICS, summits with Xi Jinping expected.
Yeah.
Do you visualize any attempt by him to move things forward, like, say, what happened in Dolam in 2017, before his big meetings?
So Chinese are difficult people to understand what goes in their mind and predict. But having said that, there are 5 principles meetings to be held in the course of next 5 months. There is G7 now. There is SCO. There is BRICS. There is G20 and there is RIC. 5 principal meetings. There will be similar meetings of the ministerial levels and the official level. So next 5 months, the political agenda is chock-a-block full with kind of interactions being carried out. And we are part of the international community where this discussion is taking place. You can't divorce yourself from all this because you have poor relations. So political is one track. The second track is the economic track. As you're aware, we have $136 billion trade. It's important to us to say just detach your economics is also not possible. And it's simple. We are a developing nation. We require to do so much for a socio-economic development of our people. So if we require intermediate projects which are produced in China, which are used to make manufactured goods in India, so which can export outside, we have to do so. If we require boilers for nuclear power plants, or you require for renewable sources of energy, lithium batteries, or in the case of solar panels or whatever. So all this equipment and hardware for electronics, what we require, we need to develop, and we have to get digitalized. So you require hardware of electronics equipment. So economics is another track which is moving ahead. We are getting out of some things that we are vulnerable, and we are now working to this end, like APIs and all. We have worked to some end to get out of the Chinese export business. But that is one. A third is the strategic angle. The strategic and military angle, as you're talking about, is absolutely different, which is abnormal situation. So there are 3 parallel tracks, and these parallel tracks don't tend to converge. So as time is passing, we have to learn the art of working within this dilemma of economics not easing off and maybe getting in hand times to come, of politics where the defense minister and the external affairs minister and the prime minister and President Xi Jinping will keep meeting in next 5 months. And then there is, of course, strategic issues. Last point here is that despite whatever has happened, and you take Doklam as an instance, and when it takes 2013, Depsang and Tumor as an instance, saying something good will happen in times to come. Or remember, if Tumor time 2024 and the premier was visiting and things eased out. I don't think we can equate previous instances and previous thing and equate it to now here. This was a premeditated, well thought out, well motivated, well coordinated incursion across a very large front. It wasn't like previous times of Doklam or previous times of Tumor. This was different. This was pre-thought about. If Chinese relent now and go back into their own territory and go back to pre-2020, what face will President Xi show to his countrymen who given him the third tenure, saying that what did you do for so long, sat there and came back? I don't think the Chinese, my personal view, of course, I don't think Chinese are going to relent hereafter on the line of actual control to what we are seated here, and this is where it's going to remain quite some time, even despite the political interaction that tend to take place.
So generally, in essence, you're saying that de-escalation will not be on the cards, and India has to be extremely clear-eyed in those 2 tracks, military positioning, while continuing to reduce the infrastructural differential.
So, look, I am not talking about, um, the word you used is de-escalation. Now, de-escalation is a separate part of the agenda which we must bring on the floor, and which we must insist that if you say it is normal, then reduce the quantum of force that you have brought so close to the borders and take them back to their cantonments. Why are you retaining 4 divisions here and so many troops across there, this side of Yarlung Sangpo? Remove them, move them backwards. You want to become normal. Start becoming normal. Don't want to talk disengagement today. Okay, we will take disengagement later. Talk de-escalation. So your use of word de-escalation, I think we need to get that on the agenda, saying that move these formations back to Hotan or Kaskar or Urumqi, wherever you brought them from, so that you tend to say, okay, we are working towards or taking some steps towards normalcy.
Right. So, I mean, when you say that India should, we don't know what's happening with closed doors, but maybe you're trying to say that India should bring this de-escalation in a systematic manner.
Yeah, exactly. So we say there should be a systemic, a verifiable system created for de-escalation of forces, which can be located there. Naturally, we will have to move some people back. We have little more problems because for us, the excess is because of the difficulty of roads. And for them, to induct them is much easier. But so be it. If you want to talk about normalcy and you want to make relationships, and you said we both are countries which are developing and we are all have similarities that which they keep talking about. So if you all this, then start talking de-escalation. Yeah? Then do not create atmosphere which looks abnormal. Why should you make a lateral which runs along the line of actual control where there is no civilization or habitation? You're making these roads, it's only a military road. So if you want to create tensions, you are creating tension. So actually we start to create a different agenda, because if disengagement further is not moving ahead, then start talking de-escalation.
Again, earlier when you were talking about Ladakh, Depsang, CNN, and the buffer zones, what is it that you advocate there? Because some analysts say, both sides are not being able to patrol, so they are buffer zones. But are we at a disadvantage because, like you were pointing out, they're trying to push us down the plateau?
Look, first issue is that there is a severe distrust. That distrust stands out in all these things. When you have a buffer zones, which are say 1 kilometer in depth in Raki Nala, or there is 2 kilometers in Kurang Nala, you are all this while on tenterhooks, because he sits on the pass, you are sitting close by, or other way around. That creates a kind of tensions for which people have to be to be ready to accept that they will infringe. They did infringement. They did it in 2020. You can't believe they tried it in Yangtse in December 2022. We just can't believe in them. So it obviously implies that we have to be on tenterhooks. So is buffer bringing about peace around in this area, or bringing about some kind of normalcy, or some kind of less worry that there will be no gutham gutha or brawls or fisticuffs taking place? Yes, but it does place people into tenterhooks lest they come and infringe it. Chinese come and infringe it. So buffer zones are all right for some time. Buffer zones are not etched in stone for lifelong. You have to move ahead. Someday you have to nullify the buffer zones. Is this instead of line of actual control becoming a belt of actual control? And this is how we're going to subsist? I don't think that's the logic of having. And having said that, this is 21st century. We can geomap the areas. Let's make an interim line. Call it anything. Change the name. Call it any name. But say, okay, we geomap the area using satellites and using ground coordinates and GPS, and find, okay, this is the existing line. And we, subject to our further discussions on the border issues, which will be discussed later, let's say, okay, this is the line. Geomap a line. Why are we hesitating now? And we can also say that it has no relationship to our claims which go up to Kundlun range or wherever our claims are. Leaving our claims apart, you say postpone it for future. Postpone of future is not buffer zones. This, as it is a word we are using, is temporary moratorium and patrolling. So if the word is temporary, so how temporary? It's only 2 years. Let's move ahead.
Sure. The defense and foreign ministers of both sides had their first meetings post Galwan with their counterparts on the sidelines of multilateral meets in Moscow, General. And now it's SCO, G20. Since then, there's been considerable movement in the China-Russia relationship and the partnership. How do you see that impacting India? And, in light of that, there's a question from viewer VC. Tell us about the Russia factor between India and China.
So you can make any concoctions and thought processes. You start with the 4th of February last year, the agreement called No Limits, and then you develop the word no limits and drag it out and you analyze it again and again and you find out with some kind of conjectures as to what no limits means. That's not necessary. With Russia, we have long-term relationships. It is always possible that there is no simple triangulation of relationships. To say that the Chinese and Russians are now brothers together for various reasons, and then it spoils the relationship that India has with Russia, is not true. Our relationship with Russia is a separate basket, and I'm sure the Russians so understand it, and I'm sure so does the Chinese understand it, that there are different baskets of relationships which are resting on historicity or long-term relationships. And I think we need not get too over worried. Maybe today there may be a problem of supply chains from Russia coming to India because of Russian involvement into Ukraine war, and they are themselves stressed for their spare parts and things like that, and it may be causing some strain to us. But I don't think this is a long-term proposition, and I think India-Russia relationships are steady, historic, and they will stand good stead.
The other relationship, India and the US, General, there's a question related to that. Vin Bao, who says China is being cornered by the US and its allies, so China is trying to look like a nice guy now. Of course, there's a Quad. We have a completely separate partnership with the US, 2+2 there as well.
Is China being cornered by the US?
In a sense, is the US-China competition, rivalry, whatever you want to call it, affecting its relationship with, say, India?
I don't think that is a kind of formulation I agree to. Because what happened, look what happened, they went to Bali, and the meeting that took place and the communique that came out between President Biden and President Xi, there was competition, plus there was lot of cooperation. We talk about 40 corporations getting out of China, the United States-based corporation, but we see that the maximum FDI that has come from the corporate affairs in the United States to China in 2022. It is tremendous amount of. So, when the business interests are there, the business interests move differently. And, they have a different connotation, different purposes. So the business community thinks in a different manner. And finally, when the business community decides issues, many ways the political relationships also tend to follow, because, United States also rides on it. So I to say that the United States has got a difficult relations with China on strategic issues, yes. But I won't say the same thing on economic relationships and on also relationships of in which they tend to marry their minds in many ways. So yes, there is Quad. Chinese get worried about Quad. There is AUKUS, which Chinese get more worried about AUKUS. But despite having said so, there is an economic relationship. China's second largest economy, the global powerhouse of manufacturing. They are the global producers. Even President Macron went recently to Beijing. He took a delegation of 60 businessmen. What the media was showing only the issues pertaining to Ukraine war and Russia, but they didn't show what 60 businessmen which went from France and were discussing. When Chancellor Schulz went recently across to China, he took a business delegation. See, all Spain has gone recently. Spain, President Pedro has gone recently. So, all these nations are beelining to China because they know that the dependence in a recessionary environment and an inflationary environment, it is important to maintain relationship with China because they have the deep pockets and do so. And I'll also end by saying 151 nations have signed in BRI. There are also 127 nations which have maximum trade with China even today. Can we obliterate this from a thought process? It is there. It's there to see. So to say that the American relationship has gone down with the Chinese, I think there are many facets and many parallel strands of the relationship which are not so evident.
And how do you see the Taiwan issue with China playing out? Ankit Arya asking, will this tussle with India stop them attacking Taiwan, or the other way around? I mean, can China have a two-front issue?
See, again, Taiwan is a difficult issue. I think this question should be first asked in the month of February 2024. Let's wait for 6 months, 7 months and see what happens to the Taiwanese elections. Because if you see the Vice President Andrew went for a 9-day, 10-day trip, the Vice President of the KMT, he went for 9-10 days trip twice in last 8 months to China. Then the ex-president of Taiwan, Ma, he went there. There are, in last two elections in 2018 and 2022, the KMT won significantly against BBP in Taiwan. So there is a political process on in Taiwan, and so-called peaceful unification, a whole lot of influence operations that the Chinese must be doing in Taiwan. Well, we have to see what result of this election that comes out in the month of January. But having said that, there are great tangibles into this situation, into Taiwan. There is a Taiwan's Relationships Act. There are issues of Okinawa ports, Okinawa, which is occupied by the Americans. There are Philippines. The Americans have established new bases. So Taiwan is not Taiwan. Taiwan is a regional issue around it. And the Chinese do understand it, that if they venture into Taiwan, which is actually is not Russians attacking Ukraine across the border. There is 150 kilometers of seas. You have to actually take a flotilla and go there. Presently, they don't have the capacities to take a flotilla to go and land on the Taiwanese beaches. So it will take some time. So Taiwan is not a simple issue. Having said that, is LAC a simple issue? On the contrary, LAC is as difficult an issue. In LAC, the Chinese understand that they have to fight, and the Indian armed forces on territorial wars are masters. We have done it. We have learned the hard way. So it's going to be a very difficult proposition along the borders. So to make life tough for us, they have to make sure that they keep coercing us militarily, politically, economically, make life as difficult as possible, add on to this so-called gray zone environment, cause influence operations, make life tough for us. I think that would be a measure.
If the Chinese are trying to make life tough for India, what are your views on our two-front threat perceptions, China and Pakistan, nexus there?
Aajkal to, I think it's exercise in futility to talk about Pakistan. Yeah, let them be happy the way they are. Let them sort out their woes. They have an election around the corner, and if predictions are all right, Imran Khan will be back in chair. If you see the crowds that he's getting, and if he gets into the chair, what happens to the army chief? Army chief who he had thrown out, army chief whose DGSI, ISI had made some strictures or some comments about the family of Imran Khan. Pakistan has got more anxieties on their own end. So let them wallow it. Let's not disturb our discussion on China.
And you talked about Russia earlier and the special relationship that India has. A question from Jack Sparrow, General. Since the Chinese have border issues with Russia, which have been sorted as well, but the current friendship seems to be temporary and not long-lasting. Do you think that is right?
So no relationships are guaranteed. I agree with John Sparrow absolutely on this one. There's no relationship that can be guaranteed for a very long time. They had a war in 1969, Usuri, where they fought on the islands there, and they resolved it. But now the Chinese are wanting to send more and more population across to settle down in Siberia. There are many comments being made that Siberia historically belonged to, or the regions of Siberia towards Vladivostok belong to China. So there are issues which are hanging fire even with the Russians. Today, Chinese require Russian, the Russians require the Chinese. Who can predict the future where things will arise? I think demographic issues which are being raised in towards Siberia are going to cause anxieties in times to come as things process. And I will not venture or hazard a guess as to how the relations will develop. All that bonhomie that you see today, whether it will stand in the longer run, I think one can't predict it.
So, General, if you want to just sum up your thoughts on this flurry of diplomatic political activity that India and China have been seeing and will see in the coming months, and the situation along the LAC.
So, I think we are both developing nations. China has done much better, but we are also a developing nation. We are a much liked nation. Let's accept it. People would like to visit us and also settle down in India. And Indians are, as a nation liked across in the world. We are that culture. We are that type of people. Countries may have relationship with China. Is China a liked nation? Why does the president say that I want to make my nation to be a likable nation in the world? He uses the word. Indians don't say we need to be liked by other nations in the world. We know that our diaspora are working, they work hard, and our relationship with countries goes centuries, Pada Sambhava or Buddhism or Hinduism. I mean, we have been a historically relationship country, and that matters. It matters. China is working hard to be liked, and despite the fact that they're not so successful. But I must state here that we have to work to the political angle separately. You just cannot say SCO is not important. It's as important as anything else. But we are also G7 next month. We are also G20. BRICS is talking about a new currency. It may not happen. But, they talk. There are a large number of nations wanted to join BRICS. We are a force to reckon with in Global South, voice of Global South. So and all this, China is part and parcel of all issues here. So a political angle has to work towards political angle, despite the fact that China-India relationship rests and is hurt by what's happened on the line of control. So they are two separate things. On the economic front, I think it's not easy. We have to take a long-term view as to where the Chinese can deny us or cause vulnerabilities to us, which we need to move out and get alternatives done, alternative supply chains or alternate production systems, so that we are not threatened at a time with vulnerabilities of which we import from Chinese. So, but we cannot devastate. We are a developing nation. We require, for a purpose of development, what we get from the Chinese. So there are three separate tracks. Very dilemmatic situation. It's a dilemma which must be exercising minds in the government here. We need to work hard. Last point here. We must not allow any kind of complacency or being lulled into a situation where political talks take place or economic interaction rises or some goodiness comes up in relationship and shaking hands or something. On the border, we will be hurt again. So on the border, we are fixated the way we are, strung along 3,488 kilometers to make sure that there is no nibbling action or chewing action which Chinese will do without fighting a war. If they want to fight a war and take a territory, so be it. That's a separate thing altogether. Fujis hate war, but well, if it comes to it, so be it. But the nibbling action, that Sun Tzu type action, quietly without fighting war, I think that should not be permitted.
General Sharma, as always, appreciate you sharing your time, your experience, and your expertise with us, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amitabh.
And for our viewers, if you'd like to help support us, there's a UPI payment QR code ID link in the descriptor. Should flash on your screen as well soon. There it is. You can also get instant updates on our Telegram channel. If you join that, you'll get updates as to when we put up articles on our website or interviews like this with Lieutenant General Sharma on our YouTube channel. This is StratNews Global. You've been watching Talking Point. I'm Amitabh Revi.